Hi, good morning. Welcome back to Friends with Cars podcast.
F1 Talk.
F1 Talk. There may be something that is different for this podcast, and it is very apparent.
Or is it co-host or tri-host, the first three?
It would be a tri-host.
Our tri-host in the middle might look a little different. She's still a pretty lady. It's just not the same one. Please welcome RJ.
Wait. There you go.
Yes,
Proper applause.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Before we go into it, I guess we'll do like a brief introduction to RJ.
Right.
RJ is my brother. He's going to be joining us. He barely got into Formula One, and I think you guys shared the experience first. You guys started playing the 2021 Formula One game together, and somehow that turned into like a love and enjoyment for watching the actual races.
Yeah. As you guys are aware, Formula One has been suffering a wave of popularity. And I say suffering, not really suffering, but popularity. I think it's kind of reached everybody. And yeah, I think the video game came up, and that's kind of the way it started. And of course, once you start watching it, you can't help it.
Did you watch Drive to Survive first, and then that got you into the game, or did you play the game first and then you kind of started watching Formula One?
You know, I think I was on the first episode of Drive to Survive, the latest season.
The fourth season, the newest one.
Yes, that's where I started, and then that's when I was mentioned to Gustavo that I started watching it. I got the game, and I just got the bug from there.
Okay.
So ever since then, now he's been getting up early and watching the races, which, eventually you get adjusted to your new sleep schedule. And make sure you accommodate for the Formula One. All right, well, lots to talk about today. Very exciting race. We do have some drinks in front of us, which has to do with the fact that we placed a bet before the race, and there were some winners and there were some losers.
Well, I was the winner. My first two predictions.
Tell me more about this, Wayne.
Leclerc P1 and Verstappen P2. My third prediction was that Sergio would get P3, but he got DNF'd.
Right.
You predicted Max would get P1.
Yep.
Perez would get P2, and Leclerc would get P3.
Yep. Uh-huh.
None of those were the case.
I have a lot to say about that. That's going to be later on in the podcast. Let's say I think there's a reason why it didn't win, and that reason has a name, and it's coming. But anyway, yes, I do concede that you did win. What was Jessica's predictions?
Jessica's predictions were Sainz would get P1, Hamilton would get P2. And Ricardo would finish in the top 10. So she actually beat you because Ricardo did get in the top 10.
Okay. All right. Well,
right. Just barely.
He did. No, he made the points.
So as we do from the previous podcast, we will take our shots. I'm going to take a shot anyways, just because I don't think it's fair that RJ's taking a shot because he didn't have any predictions.
You're an alcoholic.
Well, I didn't want to mention, I did have a little predictions of myself.
Tell us more.
Please.
I did predict Sainz to finish P1. Max P2 and Charles P3. It was looking like there was high hopes for Sainz until that DNF. But yes, those were my predictions.
All right, so you got one prediction right.
You got one prediction right.
Yes.
All right.
Well, cheers.
Here we go. Cheers, guys. Such a weird shot when I want to just sip it.
Yeah, it's a really good
Anyway.
Well, we'll jump right into it. The first thing that you wanted to talk about, which I think is all on our minds, why is it that George Russell did not get a penalty for his first lap incident with Sergio Perez?
New rule. Listen, this bastard spins a guy out. Now, Russell's a good driver. I'm not saying he's not, but he spins a guy out. Because of that spin, this guy actually did not finish the race. I think the new penalty should be you're going to end up one spot behind the guy you screwed during the race. I think it's just only fair. It's the only way to keep it fair. We saw a lot of penalties today going on, but I think that one's particular. You caused somebody to be out of the race, out of the points. Potentially, I mean, he could have gone to first. He had the pace. He was doing really well. I think that the penalties need to be a little different. You should end up behind it. Now, I understand that it might seem a little harsh, but if you cause somebody to spin out, hopefully you don't spin out Latifi because you'll always end up in the back of Latifi. And that one, you know what? Latifi should be the exception. If you spin out Latifi, it's fine. It's fine because he's going to finish at the back anyway. So it's not like he had a chance. I'm just saying Russell should have his license taken away.
Oh.
For sparing out Sergio. And no, I'm not a Red Bull fan. I'm just a fair man.
Do you think if that was implemented, I don't think that would ever happen.
No, I
but
know.
let's
That's why I can't be president.
yeah, situational. How would that change the race? Would that cause drivers to be a little bit more reserved, therefore less accidents would happen? But then does that take away from the spirit of racing?
Well, listen, I know that if you're not going for the gap, you shouldn't be racing. I understand that. And yes, it would change the race definitely because I think drivers will be a little more careful knowing that they could potentially end up in the back no matter how they do and how well they do. However, I think that there's always time to make up. You can't just change one rule. You got to change a whole bunch. I think we talked about it as a joke, right? I know the speed limiter is on as a safety precaution for when you go into the pits. But if you exceed the limit, you can get a penalty. I mean, it's in there, right? Even though there's a speed limiter, there's still a penalty that if you exceed it. I say take that speed limiter off.
Go back to the old days.
Go back to the old days, and that way you level out the playing field so quick. So yes, I understand the rule change can have a lot of big repercussions, but I think if we kind of pair it with something else, it makes it a little more even. I know it's harsh to be like you're behind that grid, but it just depends on how it happens. And I think for this case, it's just so incredibly unfair that Russell pretty much got no penalty. I mean, he got a 5-second, but it was no penalty because he ended up he started fourth and finished fourth, and the guy who got ahead of him gets to retire.
Yeah.
Again, I don't, this is why I cannot be president. I will blow up like this 10 times a day.
You mean you don't want to run for president like Sergio Perez's dad?
Man, Papa Perez, if he becomes president, I guarantee we're going to have like 3 Formula One races in Mexico.
Sheesh.
The only way he can keep the presidency.
You have anything to say? You want to add to that?
I think if he does become president, Sergio will be the Minister of Defense.
The real Minister of
Minister of Defense.
Yeah, it's a joke right now, but once his dad becomes president, it will be the real thing. Can you imagine giving Sergio the codes and he's driving and like, hey, we have an emergency. And he's like, you know what? Just push the button. I'm in the middle of the race. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Now, I think that rule change, again, we don't think it ever happened, but it is very unfair for drivers to get the lower end of the stick. What I mean by that is, I don't know where Russell is at exactly in the Drivers' Championship. I just know that Sergio Perez is second in the Drivers' Championship.
No, he's not anymore.
Well, not anymore. But going into the race, he was second in the Drivers' Championship.
Exactly.
And the fact that one little incident, I don't want to say little, but one incident put him out of contention to actually even score points in this race, because after that first lap, he was already 40 seconds behind the pack. So there was no way he was going to catch up, which is why they finished him. But I think there was damage to the side pods anyways.
Right. But it was extensive damage, so he couldn't, it wasn't going to be a good race for him.
Yeah.
You know what? That's a good point. Maybe since Russell's sitting comfortably in 5th place right now for the championship and Perez went down to 3rd, maybe that's where you hit him in the points. If you spin out the guy, then he gets your points.
Right.
To a certain
Or half your points, maybe.
to a certain extent, right? Not all of their points.
No, for the race.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe you have to give up half your points.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Again, if you're Latifi, you're never going to get anything from him.
well, we know how Formula One teams work, right? They're going to read in between the lines and somehow use that to their advantage.
So absolutely.
If you're going to hit him in the points, is it worth it to take that hit on the points as long as that other driver doesn't get the Drivers' Championship or doesn't help the other team get to the Constructors' Championship?
I mean, Formula One is already so petty, which is why I love it, that it's okay if you do that, I think. I mean, you're giving them pretty much everything they want, everything they need, and it's so petty already that, you know what? If I crash right now and I'm going to stop everything and I'm going to get first place, why not do it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to cost you millions because, as we know, the repairs for those cars are not cheap.
I think that's a good point. I think if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
You know what? This is true. And by the way, I don't know if this is on your list, but the baby back bitch complaining on the radios, it's incredible. And I don't know if that's on your list or not.
We can segue into that.
Okay. So, yeah, on with that is I think we all know Hamilton is the biggest bitch of them all, right? I mean, he will get on the radio and say, this car's undrivable, and then get the fastest lap. He says, these tires are going, and gets the fastest lap. This is, I can race this, and then he finishes on the podium. I mean, he does it. But we heard it today very clearly when Leclerc said, what's going on with the pedal? Red Bull immediately went to Max, and he's like, it looks like he's having some trouble. Stay on him. So if I know that's happening, I guarantee you Leclerc had nothing wrong with his pedal. And you're just trying to make sure that someone makes a mistake. I mean, if Max pushes because he's like, oh, I got to get closer, and he spins out, Leclerc could have been laughing, saying, I had no pedal issue.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I just want to see what you guys were going to do. It's like the fake out on the pit, right? We've all seen it. Mm-hmm. The team rushes out and they're like, oh, shit, they're going to pit. And then when they come around, it's like, psych, we didn't pit. But they made other teams pit.
Yeah. Good point. Segueing into Lewis Hamilton being a baby back bitch.
Yes.
One of the complaints that he had was arguing with his team that he did not exceed the track limits, which they did the replay and he definitely clearly exceeded track limits. This, I think, has to be the one race I've seen the most warnings for exceeding track limits. And it wasn't just one driver. It was several drivers. And we've been watching this for 5 years now, 5 or 6 years. And this is the most warnings I've ever seen.
I agree. It was unbelievable to see that many happening and so quick too. And it's not like it kind of faded away as the first couple of laps went by. Like it was halfway through the race, we were still getting them. So I don't know. I have to look into why this happened. Maybe they switched some sort of rule or changed the lines. Maybe it's the new tires. They're bigger, better, longer, uncut. I don't know. What do you think, RJ?
Yeah, I definitely think there was a lot more penalties this time. But in a sense, everyone was trying to keep the same race line, and it seemed like everyone was just getting warnings, double warnings, and potentially black and white flags. But yeah, I think it was a fair game today. I think a lot of them were just trying to push as hard as they could. Yeah.
Well, you bring up a good point. If everyone's getting the penalties in the same spot, maybe you got to just change that race line.
Yeah, don't follow the next guy. Use a different line. I know we keep on bringing it up, but the new Formula One game, I exceed the track limits all the time. So, I empathize with them. I understand.
I agree. I think I literally felt the same pain they felt when they exceeded track limits that I felt when I was playing the game. Mm-hmm. The shocking thing for me, and I don't know, this is me being ignorant, when they gave him a 5 second, I'm like, 5 seconds? It's supposed to be 3. I mean, the video game, you get 3 seconds, but then James made a good point. Maybe we get 3 seconds because we're going to get multiple, and they only got 5 seconds because they're probably not going to do it again.
Right.
Which, it's not uncommon for me to get a 9 second,
12 second
track limit penalty, but, yeah.
Video game's a little bit more strict.
It seems like it.
I go off with one tire, and all of a sudden, 3 seconds starts adding up. 6 seconds, 9 seconds, and I think it's I think it makes you really want to drive conservative, but then also you're trying to push at the same time. So it's like, what is going on?
This is coming from the guy who's always ahead of the pack, who's always ahead by like a couple seconds in pace. I'm like, what the shit?
I liked it. RJ say, I think the video game's a little more strict, and that James agreed. Never contemplating the fact that you just could be shitty drivers.
Well, there's that.
Yes.
I'm not a shitty driver. That game is strict, which happened today, of course, when people are blaming the car. It's like in any sport. The only sport you can't blame the equipment, I think it's basketball. You can't say this ball sucks because you're the one shooting it. But I think every other sport, you look at the glove, look at the bat. These guys are like, oh, this car's undrivable. I'm like, okay, blaming the car? Unless you're Carlos Sainz, you have the legitimate complaint. Because the guy almost died today.
Oh, my gosh.
Man.
Well, you do bring up Carlos Sainz, and actually that was my next point.
Oh, okay.
Ferrari suffered a DNF today. It is...
As Ferrari does.
As they do. They do have some reliability issues, and I feel bad for Carlos Sainz coming back to this race from a win last week. But what is up with the
Marshals?
The Marshals. What is up with the Marshals? There was no action to put that fire out right away. They were just watching that car burn, and Carlos was still in the car.
I don't know if it's because we're not there and we don't. Maybe there's a rule where you can't even jump on, which makes no sense to me. But the fact that we're watching on camera where the cars literally flames are coming out, and this guy puts his fire extinguisher down and goes the other way as the other comes around. There's only one guy going after the car. There should have been 10 guys spraying down that car. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the protocol is. I'm sure if someone's watching the video from the FIA, they're probably saying, yeah, we screwed up on this one. It seems to me like you're right. The sense of urgency was not there for them, and it makes no sense. Looking at the car afterwards, it's pretty significant. The fact that he couldn't stop the car because it was rolling back, so he couldn't get out of the car, it's just insane that there was not more action happening at that time.
Yeah.
I think from an outside perspective, I started to get a little worried, that fire was getting pretty big and didn't seem like there was much urgency. Like Gustavo said, it seemed like he set the fire extinguisher down, started going the other way. I think the marshals got caught lacking a little bit. Maybe they were just watching the race, having fun, and then all of a sudden, oh crap, it's time to do something.
Absolutely. And you know what? As a racing fan, I always think it'd be nice to be a marshal and be next to the track when it's happening. But having seen this, I'm like, you know what? As a fan, I probably shouldn't be doing that because I shouldn't be watching the race for enjoyment. I should be watching it for any hazards. And I think you're right. I think they were caught slipping on this one. And we almost lost Carlos Sainz, who, by the way, drove with his balls on the hood once again. But unfortunately, Ferrari is his worst enemy. His worst enemy is himself. I don't know what's going on. I don't know.
I do want to play a little bit of devil's advocate, though, because I think where Carlos could have, and granted, the engine failure was out of his hand, out of his control. But I think what he could have controlled is when he went out on that turn off, and it was on a slope. What he could have done is when you're on a
turn the wheel,
right? Which is eventually what they did. So if you go back into the videos, they actually have the rear end of the car leaned up against the fence.
Okay.
So I think he could have at least, turned the wheel. It would have rolled back. It would have hit the fence. Maybe he didn't want to do that because it would have caused more damage to the car. Maybe the team would have had to spend more money replacing the rear end of the car, but he almost died.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe there's a thing where they tell you to just keep the wheel straight when you stop the car. Or, I don't know. Maybe he didn't realize the car was that much on fire when it was happening. He is wearing a helmet. He's got the neck brace. He was trying to get out and the car kept going back. Maybe he didn't know the car was on fire himself and didn't realize it. That's, again, you're right. He could have done things different. The marshals could have done things different. But, yeah, it just seems a little... Again, it just seems like it took a long time to handle that. Even going back to the Roman Grosjean crash, of how quick the actions were there. And even then, it seemed like a long time. A long, long time. Mm-hmm. And even though he was in the back of the pack and you figure marshals could have just ran on and start spraying. But even, I feel like that was even faster.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I'm glad everyone's fine.
Yeah, agreed.
And I'm glad Carlos's balls are
on the hood.
On the hood. And hopefully better for the next race.
I think, although he did suffer a DNF, I think he's still in contention for a championship.
Oh, absolutely. I think that the worst thing about this is that you have pace. You just won your first pole last time. Mm-hmm. You have the pace. Guaranteed, I think we talked about this, he could have caught Max and passed him. I think he had the pace. I think he could have gone that second place, kind of continue that momentum. And the fact that, the car gave out on him. Again, I don't know how many times this has happened to Ferrari. But the fact that it keeps happening, it's baffling.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing. I really don't. I am an expert at this. I just don't know what they're doing.
So I wanted to just check the points, the current driver championship point standings. Carlos Sainz is in fourth with 133 points. Oh, you're looking at it too?
Oh, yeah.
Sergio Perez, 151 points. He was second prior to this race. And then Charles Leclerc in second with 170, and then Max Verstappen with 208 at first place.
We're halfway through the season. In theory, there's another 200, points that someone can get.
Yeah.
So it's still, I think the top five are still kind of battling it out. I don't know that Hamilton has a chance at this point, only because unless Mercedes does something to the car and he can finish, first in the next couple of races. That would also mean that the top four need to not do well in the race, which is going to be a tough call. But I think the top three for sure are definitely in contention. Top four potentially. I mean, I hate the fact that George Russell is in contention for this. He's got 128 points. Fuck that guy.
I think, like you said, Hamilton might be out of, in contention for the championship, but I think Mercedes might be relying on more of the constructors championship. Their team seems to be very consistent, and I think their car is good. I mean, they may not have the pace, but it's all about consistency. And if you're staying in the race and you're finishing top five, I think you have a good chance for the constructors.
Yeah, and I think we said it during the race, right? Ferrari they can't have both. They can't have reliability and speed for this season somehow. But you're right. I think Mercedes has been just straight out reliable. I mean, they are in third with 237 points. Yeah, I think it'll be great if we have a Ferrari champion, but Mercedes takes the constructors once again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which they have a good chance. Provided Russell doesn't spin out Perez anymore.
Well, going back to the Ferrari and their reliability issues, I don't think this is necessarily a reliability issue. As of right now, as we're filming this podcast, there was no news on what exactly was going on with Charles Leclerc's throttle pedal, which I know was a really big concern for us during the race and obviously a concern for the team, but Charles Leclerc was going through some throttle pedal issues. It wouldn't go back to 0% throttle. He says it was getting stuck between 20 to 30%, and he would have to use his foot, get behind the throttle, and lift it back up. As a driver going 160 miles an hour, that is obviously just for us. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy just to be able to handle that. Coming to a turn 160 miles an hour, braking, getting behind the throttle, lifting it up. It's absolutely wild. I want to get your guys' take on that.
Well, I as an everyday driver myself, a couple of times in my lifetime I can recall a couple of times where I tried to step on the brake at some point and my foot slipped, and I had a major freak out moment, even though I was probably going like 30 miles an hour and there was no danger of me crashing. So yeah, I don't know if they go through these scenarios of what can happen while you're going this far up. I mean, listen, they have to switch controllers onto that. If you've seen the steering wheel, they have to switch knobs on the fly, which to me is beyond insanity. They have to do that. I think the biggest thing for me was the fact that there was a comment made by Crofty on the broadcast that said, you probably don't want the stewards to hear that you're having that kind of a problem. I don't know if it becomes a safety thing where they're like, hey, we heard that your pedal is stuck. We're going to ask you right now, if this is true, you need to pit your car and you need to remove them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the situation was a little bit scary for Ferrari and obviously Charles. I think I'm not sure if he's ever been in that situation before, but I think as, trained professionals, I think he did handle it in a good way. Obviously, you saw that Max was closing that gap pretty fast. I think
there was that. Yeah,
I think a couple more laps. If there was a couple more laps, Max was definitely going to pass him. So I think it definitely was a sign of relief that there was only 2 more laps left when he started emphasizing that this was a serious thing. But as a professional, he took it. He took it in a good way, and he definitely finished the race in good fashion.
Oh yeah, I did think for a second that maybe Leclerc was sandbagging it and be like, oh, this thing is undrivable. But yeah, you're right. The last couple of laps, Max did get pretty close, and it's like, oh shit, maybe it is true. Mm-hmm. Listen, my solution is just put a rope on the pedal and tie it to the side, and if it ever happens again, just pull that rope and then pull that to zero. Just saying.
I think if it wasn't for, I think Max got stuck behind Schumacher or one of the Haas's. I think if he wouldn't ran into some traffic, it would have been obviously more closer than what it was, but I think he might have passed him. Oh. I think he would have gotten in front of him, but he got held up in some traffic.
Oh yeah. Can we talk about Mick? Is that Mick on your schedule? Can we talk about Mick?
Yeah, no, let's talk about Mick. Let's talk about Haas and Mick in general.
Okay. Yeah. So, Archie's wearing his American flag for the only American team on Formula One, which is Haas. What the hell is going on? I mean, I think we went literally from 0 to 60 when they said Mick has to score some points, otherwise he's going to be out. And I think like that race, he started driving. Now, last race, I think we were all concerned when he's trying to fight Max. He's in 8th place, and he's fighting Max Verstappen. Like, the guy that will spin you out and then spit on you and then get first place. Mick, who hasn't gotten any points, was trying to fight this guy.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But he did get some points. We come to this race, and he gets 6th place. It's like, wait, is that all it takes? I just gotta threaten to break up with you, and then you're like, okay, fine, I'll get you flowers, and I'll call you, and we'll take you to dinner, and I'll pay for everything. What the hell? I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think as a new fan of Formula One, watching Drive to Survive, they definitely don't give Haas. They definitely give him a hard time in Drive to Survive, and you always know them as the last place team. And the last couple of races, I've been impressed. Haas has definitely caught up with some of the rest of the cars, and they're finishing top 10, obviously scoring points. And I like it. A team that has to come from the back and obviously make better corrections with the car and everything. It's definitely good for Formula One. I think hopefully they could keep up with McLaren in points and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's good.
Well, Jessica not being here, Ricardo's definitely not helping McLaren. So
No, Ricardo's not helping McLaren at all.
So I think that's easily going to happen, that Haas is going to catch up to McLaren. They're definitely not doing good. What is going on? What is the big difference between Haas and Williams? Because at one point they were at the end with each other. Like, they were fighting to be last. What is it that Haas is doing and has done that Williams is not doing?
They got rid of massive spin.
Yeah.
Listen, it's kind of weird. You know what? I think I want to say Alpine made when they got Alonso. They talk about having a driver who has experience that can help the team, right? Because they know the car and they can tell you, hey, this feels weird. We should work on this. When you have a new driver, they don't really know how to help the team. It takes a little bit of time. At the same time, when you have an experienced driver, your second driver, okay, there's no second drivers, but your second driver has something to shoot for, right? Okay, he's finishing here. I should finish right behind him or ahead of him, because if he's 5, I should be 6 or 4, right? I think what Haas had is massive spin. You spin out, Schumacher's like, well, I guess as long as I don't spin out, I'm doing better.
Yeah, that's true.
But the fact that you got K-Mag, and right off the bat, K-Mag is excelling in the car, I think that kind of gives the second driver, again, there's no second drivers, the second driver a chance to see, okay, I guess my car can do this well. Something Ricardo is not doing. Obviously, he's not looking at Lando's car. So I think that's something that can benefit the team. Albon has Latifi as the guy he's got to work with.
Okay, but then what's Latifi's excuse? He's got Albon to somewhat, because Albon's a veteran driver somewhat. He's been in F1 longer than Latifi, but how come Latifi cannot elevate himself and keep up? He is always dead last. What is going on?
I think that's a very simple and easy answer. He
Just get rid of him?
shouldn't have been a Formula One driver.
Yep. There you go.
Listen, it's easy to judge because, of course, I'm not a Formula One driver. I mean, I am a Formula One driver, but in the game console, and I get penalties. But I think it's easy to, from up here, it's easy to judge. And I think we can all see that it took Schumacher a little bit of time to get adjusted, and now he's doing well. And I think we've seen it with all the new drivers. It seems it takes him half a season to get going. Yuki had the same issue. Zhou had the same issue. Latifi just never got out of that. Now, they might be really good at Formula 2, and again, the car's a little bit slower. It's a little bit different setup. Maybe they just can't get adjusted to it. And I think it's like that in any sport. Probably basketball, college, you can exceed in college and be the best player in college, but then you get to the NBA and you're like, not that great. You can't really hang out with the big boys. The big difference is Formula 1 has 20 players. And 20 players only. You're going to be looked at under the microscope a lot harder. Mm-hmm. So Latifi is just not. Maybe he had a promise, it's just not there, and at some point the team gets attached to it, and it's like a long relationship. You don't want to start all over again, so you try to work it out.
Wait,
what? Sorry, I blacked out. What happened?
Are we talking about people we know, or
what? Wait, what happened? No, it's fine. I'm looking at you, Ricardo.
Oh no!
You and McLaren need to break up.
Well, the last point that I had was, although he got a DNF, somehow he got first place. Sergio Perez got first place. there was a little hiccup with people who are running the audio, not the audio equipment, the graphics. It said that Charles Leclerc, who was on the podium, was Sergio Perez.
You have one goddamn job.
One goddamn job. Like I can see there was another race. It was a couple seasons ago where they put the
wrong flag.
The wrong flag up,
And I want to say it was the Mexico flag.
it was supposed to. No, yeah, it was the Mexican flag. No, Sergio Perez. Actually, it was the race that Sergio won. I think it was supposed to be the Mexican flag, and they put something else.
Right.
But yeah, Sergio Perez ended up on the podium today somehow.
Someone listen. I think in the graphics department, there's a guy that's a mega Sergio Perez fan, and there's a guy that's like, I fucking hate Sergio Perez. So they're always battling each other, and they're like, hey, you know what I'm gonna do this reason? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do this race. I'm gonna change Sergio's flag, and then the other guy's like, I'm gonna get back at you by putting up Sergio's name as first place. I don't know. It's funny. Yeah, it's like they have one job, they have plenty of time to figure out, and it's like somehow. Isn't it cute? Is this like the New York Times? New York Times works on obituaries. I mean, there's someone that works on the obituaries. So when a famous person dies, the obituary is already done. I wonder if they predict who's going to win, and they're like, "Hey, let's just do the graphic for first place already, just in case," and they just push the wrong button.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yep, same here. That's all the points that I had. I don't know if there's anything else you guys.
RJ, anything else that you want to add since this is your first time joining us?
I think there was definitely good racing today. I think there was on turn 3, there was like 5 cars all in that same turn, or maybe 6.
Oh yeah.
It was wild, but there was definitely a lot of good racing today, and my love for Formula One just keeps growing, and as long as we start seeing things like that more, it's good.
Yeah. Well, it was great to have you. Hopefully, we'll have you again. This was it's a good time, and that's all we have, folks.
Well, we got to go through our predictions still, right?
Oh, that's right.
Whoa.
Predictions,
Come on. But one thing before we go into the predictions, though, going to your new love of Formula One, obviously you're more than welcome to join us for any of the races that we go to. I think Gustavo looked into, or he read into the fact that the Las Vegas Grand Prix next year is not the weekend that we wished it would be, which is Thanksgiving weekend, which is the weekend that we normally go.
Yeah.
It's going to be the weekend prior.
Yeah, the rumor is going to be the weekend before. I believe Spa was on the chopping block as a prediction for, which is kind of weird because it's kind of like his storied, track. Depending on what happens on the calendar, Vegas might be like the November 18th weekend, which is of course not what we wanted because we wanted the weekend of Thanksgiving. But they have to accommodate to the U.S., right? They can do a race on Thanksgiving Day, right? Why not? Football plays on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit? Formula One is bigger than football. Only because there's only too many drivers, not a whole bunch.
Oh, you bring up a good point, though. So maybe it's because the Raiders are going to be in town in Las Vegas and they can't be playing. They can't have the Formula One Grand Prix and the Raiders game on the same weekend.
Hey, you're Vegas. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
It's a
can you
super
imagine? Oh my God. I don't care about the
spreader.
super spreader thing, but I'm a little bit worried when I'm in Vegas and there's a game going on because I know how Raider fans get.
Yeah, if you're a Raider fan, we're afraid of you. We respect you. Please don't kill us. Raider fans are not watching Raider podcasts.
No, yeah, that's right. What Raider fans watch Formula One?
They're at home bashing their head on the wall.
God, damn.
Oh,
God.
I'm sorry. Wait, did the NFL start yet? No, they're bashing their head on the wall. They're like, oh, this feels the same. Anyway.
Well, let's go into our predictions because the next race is Paul Ricard, which is the France Grand Prix. So Paul Ricard, if you want to join us next podcast, you're more than welcome to. If not, we'll hold you to these anyways, and you'll still have to take a shot.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with you, RJ. What are your predictions for the next race?
The French.
I'm going to stick to who I think is doing good right now. I'm going to go with Carlos Sainz, P1.
Sainz or Leclerc?
No, Sainz.
Okay.
I think they might fix the car. He might find some pace, and I got him going P1. Then I'll get Leclerc P2.
Ooh.
And Max P3.
P3. Is it okay if I mention your sports bet?
Yeah, that's fine.
Because you rich, you got that money.
I did predict Carlos Sainz to win at Silverstone, and I did cash out on quite a bit.
That was you bet $50 on Carlos Sainz to win the Silverstone Grand Prix, and it was with $50 that was free play, right?
Yes.
Oh man, how much you win?
$450.
Sheesh.
You got that money.
Got that money.
You know, I did my predictions for this week's sports betting. I did predict Sainz P1 and then Russell fastest lap, but that obviously didn't happen.
What's the app that you're using?
My bookie.
Hey, my bookie, sponsor us.
We're doing well. I think I have an account on that. Don't I have an account?
You do.
I do have an account on that.
Have you used your free play yet?
I haven't, so I should do that.
There you go.
I think I bet in golf. It's all legal.
Yeah, of course.
Legal.
Of course.
In case legal's watching. Producers? Yeah,
Legal.
we're good.
Yep.
We're good.
Okay. So I thought is it my bookie said?
Mm-hmm.
I thought my bookie you couldn't bet on Formula One only at the beginning of the season. Weren't they offering?
They might have changed that once the season started.
Okay.
I think, but before the season started, this is a couple months ago, we were kind of going through it, and there was only so much you can do. I think, unfortunately, I put Lando to do better this season. So I have to go back in and see, but I think they changed that. So once the season started, you can actually bet per race.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's good though, because last time we were in Vegas in November at the Circa, I asked if they would accept bets or they take bets on Formula One. They don't, or they did not. So I'm wondering if we go back in November that they will offer bets for Formula One. And I'd like to place a future bet for the 2023 season of who's going to win. That'd be a good bet.
I think Sergio is going to win
Championship
2023.
2023. That's something I would put, like if you put $50 on, like what would be that payout if it's a future bet? Season hasn't even started for 2023.
Even if I win $1, I feel like a winner anyway
Yeah.
because I got it right. It's not about the. I mean,
Money's good too.
Money's great, but if I just get $1, I'll be like, I got it right.
You'd be surprised the odds that they have on these drivers. Like they at Silverstone, they did not give Sainz. You know, obviously $50 bet won $415. You know, the odds. I guess they weren't thinking that he was going to win, but he's obviously been keeping up this season.
Did you place the bet prior to qualifying or after qualifying?
I
It
think
has to be prior to qualifying.
I placed a bet after practice session 1.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think on Wednesdays it's power rankings. So on Wednesday they release the power rankings, and I think that's usually probably where they best place the bets on, being like, okay, who's got the possibility to move up and be faster. So maybe that's why Sainz didn't get a good rating for Silverstone because the power rankings didn't show that he was moving up, but
Right.
he did.
All right. Well, Gustavo, what are your predictions?
Perez has done well in France. I feel like he's prime for P1.
Perez, P1.
I think Leclerc is going to take P2. And unfortunately, our favorite baby back bitch, Hamilton, is going to go third.
You think Verstappen might have a problem with this car?
Verstappen might have an issue with the car. He might have a terrible start. I think he's going to struggle. I think Perez is looking for revenge after this one. And but again, I think Perez has done well in France before. I recall him doing really well in France. So I'm hoping that he's going to capitalize on that.
Okay.
What do you got?
I'm going to say Lewis, P4. It's very specific, not in the podium, but just enough.
Okay, yeah.
P4. I'm going to say Sainz, P2. I'm going to say Perez, P1. I'm also thinking that Verstappen's not going to end up on the podium.
Yeah. I don't know why I got that feeling. He's done well in France. I think he won last time in France. I think he was doing really well this season, but somehow I feel like he's due. I don't know why he's due. And also, I'm hoping that Carlos is not going to get a penalty if he gets a new engine starting the back.
Yeah, there's that other concern too, right?
Yeah. We'll see.
Well, RJ, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We appreciate you, your new love for Formula One, and maybe you'll join us for more Formula One races.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
By the way, Jessica's not dead. She's still alive.
She's still alive.
But she just wasn't available today.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right.
Cheers.
Yeah, thank you.
See ya.